My dad got started officiating in the early 50s. He had played ball at Alabama, 48 to 44 to 48, baseball and football, and coached for a couple years in Eufaula. And after he coached for a couple years, he goes back to Tuscaloosa to get the sporting goods business. And he was in team sales then, like selling helmets, shoulder pads, team equipment. And I'm sure getting in officiating, he's, officiating something he loved to do, but he's working with guys that he had, coached with, coached against, played with, played against. And it kind of was social networking to him. I could picture him, calling a guy's game Friday night and then come around the next week, calling him, hey, why don't you use my equipment next year, that kind of thing. And he started in Tuscaloosa in the high school level and did high school football, basketball, baseball. But it was amazing that he only worked for 4 years in high school. In '56, he jumped to the SEC, which, could you imagine now somebody working 4 years in high school and jumping the SEC? But like I said, he did high school football, basketball, baseball, and then jumped to college and did all three in college for a while before he kind of settled in on football. Some of my dad's memorable moments in officiating were he basically called every bowl game there was. Back then, this is the old school, the old generation. There's only about 10 or 12 bowl games, and he called the Senior Bowl and the Blue-Gray Bowl for probably 20 years or so. But he called every other bowl game available. His last bowl game to call was the Cotton Bowl, Joe Montana's last game. Of course, nobody knew Joe Montana was going to be that great then, but Notre Dame gets up 28-0, and Montana leads a great comeback in like 0-degree weather to win 29-28. So that was his last game to work. But he, being athletic, being very competitive, he graded out as the #1 back judge in his day. And back then, the #1s get the best bowl games they were available for. And he called every bowl game available. He did not get a chance to call the Rose Bowl, but it's interesting because he played in the Rose Bowl at Alabama. His freshman year at Alabama was their last Rose Bowl team, so he basically had experience with every bowl available out there, and that's something that they earned through their grading system. They told me he was a really good basketball official, some of the old-timers did. He was doing a freshman basketball game at Alabama, and Coach Goosetree on the football staff, his son Jim Tom Goosetree, comes wandering out on the court, in the middle of a basketball game. And they said my dad came by and scooped him up on one hip and goes the other end, calls the action, transition, goes the other side, sets him on the end of the bench and never loses contact with the game. And, if something like that had gone on now, it'd be on ESPN, TikTok and, all these different social medias. But, just, could you imagine that now? Probably my dad's biggest enjoyment, I guess, was just the camaraderie with the guys. Playing team sports, you're a member of the team, and you go on road trips together and so forth. And same thing with calling at college level. You load up with the guys and you go spend a weekend together. And it's kind of funny, back then they didn't have any publicity. They had maybe one game, national game of the week, so there weren't many games on TV. Nobody really knew about the social media now. They have more social media and rec games than you do the big time games back then. Just hanging out with the guys and being with the guys and was his biggest enjoyment, I think. It's kind of lost to history who kind of got my dad started, because he started so long ago. We could kind of get in easier and refer some of the guys that he helped influence, but who influenced him back in the early 50s is kind of lost to history. But I know if you read Dick Burleson's book, he credits my dad getting him started, and Bobby Skelton, a lot of other guys, Jack Smalley, Buddy Wesley, a lot of other guys that played at Alabama. He was in Tuscaloosa at the time and kind of got a lot of them into it. My dad, being in sporting goods business, he sold basically entertainment, recreation, and I had 3 older brothers, and we all grew up hunting, fishing, playing golf. And fall in Alabama is the best time to hunt, fish, and play golf. And for 30-something years, he sacrificed that time with us, and we sacrificed that time with him. I mean, we enjoyed the notoriety, the publicity he got from it, and his accomplishments. But we did a whole lot of hunting and fishing, playing golf without him on beautiful fall Saturdays. And we looked at, like I said, my 3 older brothers kind of dabbled in a little bit, and I officiate some now. After his death, I got into it. Somebody asked me to, and I wish I had done it earlier and could learn from him. My dad called on the field the SEC for 25 4 years or so, but he became supervisor of officials for probably 10 or so years. And from guys I've talked to that were under him, he didn't miss anything. I know I was at a game with him, LSU, Tennessee, back in the 70s or early 80s, and he was a supervisor, and have a post-game meeting, and I heard two of the guys kind of talking, didn't know I was standing there, said, you know, that play I wasn't in position in. So we get in a little meeting a little bit later, and he said, you were out of position that play. And he goes, ooh. He didn't miss anything, and he was good at schooling guys of where they should be. And that was back before instant replay. My dad was responsible for getting a lot of guys into officiating, and I think he would tell somebody that's interested in officiating, don't do it just for the money. It ain't for everybody. It's not just a job. If you don't love it, don't do it. But if you do it, get into it and do it right. Nobody wants to be the guy that everybody's hollering at on the field. You don't be the weak link in the crew. So if you're going to do it, spend the time to do it right and work on your craft. You're a professional. You're getting paid. So spend some time to act like a professional, carry yourself like a professional. My dad would be honored to be inducted into the Sports Official Hall of Fame. On the one sense, it's a great accomplishment. It honors what he's done, his career. On the other sense, his generation kind of didn't seek out, notoriety or fame. And so in one sense, he kind of be, no big deal, because you don't really notice the officials from his generation. The less you notice them, the better. But times have changed, and this is a great thing to honor guys, and it's great to honor guys from the past. He's not around to speak for himself, and there's some other guys his age, his generation, that probably need to be recognized as well eventually.